Welcome back. Throughout the series, we'll give you the heads up on many of the categories of racing in WA, what they're all about and how you can get involved. This week, one of the most cost-effective forms of four-wheel racing, the mighty HQs.
Let's face it, if you don't live in the big end of town and you want to indulge your passion for motor racing, a reasonably priced option is the way to go. Well, over the years, Holden HQ racing has been steadily growing in popularity in Australia and New Zealand, and not just because it's so close and exciting.
It's a very affordable formula, and it's been made that way specifically from when it was first started back in the early 80s. Reason for that is that we want people from all sorts of walks of life to come HQ racing. So we've put controls in the sport like tyres and various engine components and things, so that there's a cap on the amount of money you can spend. It's about how well you prepare the car and how well you drive it, not about how much money you spend.
Howard Crump has been racing HQs for a few seasons now and says putting the iconic Australian family sedan on a racetrack demands a very specific set of skills from the drivers.
Being very smooth and trying to get one of these to drive smoothly is a real work of art. You've got to put a lot of time into setting up the car. You don't have enormous horsepower to work with, so if you can set the car up to work well and not make mistakes, then you can be quite competitive, and we're starting to prove that this year in this class, that with some of the guys who were at the front for so very long have moved out. We've got a lot of new guys getting up the front and they're starting to learn how to race, and it's been very, very good racing this year.
The motive behind establishing a one-make series like HQ Racing is close competition, but the key to keeping it really competitive is restricting the modifications teams can make to their cars. All the cars run the factory 202 HQ engine, and most of the stock internals have to be retained. It's a package that has proved very durable in race conditions. They certainly built cars to last back in the 70s. About the only component that can be customised is the exhaust system. All cars race on control suspension and tyres, and drivers here in WA have gone one step further to keep the competition even by agreeing to run their machines on pump fuel. Now, all of these controls haven't reined in the performance of the HQ on the track. They're out there to race, and when you plant it, these babies get up and boogie.
If you look at the times that these things ran at Bathurst the last time they raced, which was just 2.5 years ago, they run around the Mount Panorama circuit faster than Alan Moffat and Peter Brock ran around in 1972 and HO Falcons and XU1 Tiranas. And we're on standard radial tyres and drum brakes, same as they were back then, and this is just a humble 202. So that's how much fun you can have. If you ever thought that you'd like to be Moffat and Brock back in 72, this is it. And you can do it now out on the track, and there's 24, 25 other people out there with you wanting to do exactly the same thing. It's an absolute blast.
It all adds up to a very accessible brand of motorsport, and that's reflected in the growing number of guys and girls on the starting grid at both national and state championship levels.
Locally, it's certainly going through a huge resurgence, has been over the last 4 or 5 years. We're averaging 24, 25 cars a race meeting, which makes for a lot of fun out on the track. I mean, I started 16th last time and worked my way up to 3rd, and getting past that many cars in a race is a lot of fun.
There's one thing that race fans can almost always rely on, and that's the close action and big fields in the HQ Championship. The 06 season opened and no exception, the mighty Qs rocking up with a good-sized grid and some old faces back behind the wheel. Plenty of off-season preparation evident, many of the crews putting a big emphasis on presentation as well as outright performance. Never one to take second stage in the excitement stakes, the HQs provided plenty of entertainment, but not quite what Fogliani had in mind, this the result of an earlier altercation. Coming back after a 5-year break, Jeff Watt's the man to catch on the night, a first in race 1 and 3, Howard Crump taking out the reverse grid race 2 from the front, proving his fastest lap in race 1 no fluke. Meanwhile, defending champ Grant Howlett putting in a consistent night with 3/3 and a fastest lap. Dave Turner and Colin Chapman featuring on the podium in what was a good all-round first-up performance for the Qs. Watts taking a lead of the series on 80 points, Howlett only 8 points adrift with 72, Turner, Crump and Chapman most certainly in the mix.
He's kicking off 06 well. A good field and a bag full of points for returning punter Watts. 05 champ Howlett keeping the pack honest and will be keen to get on with his defence. Howard Crump serving notice that the hold-on team will certainly be in the mix. Turner and Chapman also grabbing valuable points.
Another highlight of the Autotrader Trophy, the mighty HQs. Round 1 of the State Series, the WA Smoke-Free Night Masters, was a highly contested event, setting many of the drivers up for what could be a very successful and competitive season. HQ driver Jeff Watts, coming back from a 5-year break, had a great start to the season, leading the pack at Night Masters.
So it's a good class to be in. It's really exciting to be back again and running with the guys up the front, so it's good.
The HQs also competed over the 2-day event, but Saturday's race not so kind to the returning Watts, a gearbox problem leaving him struggling for points. Other drivers faring better, Stephen Raceline coming in first with the fastest lap in the process, Howard Crump and Grant Howlett taking second and third spots. The first race on Sunday better for Watts, the reverse grid allowing him to lead for most of the way. The action hotted up on lap 6 as Raceline attempted to overtake the number 75 car. Watts fending him off, however Raceline persisted and passed him on the other side of the hill. Turner also slipping past into second on lap 7, Watts hanging on for third spot and valuable points. Chapman and Woodbridge rounding out the top 5. The final HQ race for the round was a scratch start on accumulated points. Steve Raceline starting on pole, Howard Crump alongside with Alan Hill starting behind the leading pair. Race 3 a clean sweep for Raceline, making a great comeback after a less than perfect performance at the Night Masters with mechanical problems. The Autotrader a great event for Raceline with 3 wins from 3 starts. Howard Crump also picking up a bag full of points, taking second place here in race 3, adding a further 2nd and 6th place for the round. Turner finished his day with a 3rd and a fastest lap. Chapman taking 4th and finishing 3rd overall for the event. As usual, plenty of door handle to door handle action. Menezes taking a break in the sand late in the last race. So after 2 close-fought days of the Autotrader Trophy, Raceline leading the pack with 90 points, Crump next with 71 and Chapman coming in 3rd for the round. And to the championship standings, Jeff Watts maintains his lead on 132, Crump's consistency sees him only 2 points adrift, and Raceline's big points haul sees him stepping up to 3rd on 127. Chapman rounding out the top 4 on 116 points.
A full program of events is certain to make round 3 a close-fought and entertaining day. Being the Winter Classic, the likelihood of wet weather thrown into the mix is a guarantee for crowd-pleasing action. Not that the HQs need the excuse of a wet track to keep racing spectacular. Full grids and a controlled category often provide great racing. This class, another keen to get back into competition.
Last round's Autotrader Trophy saw some great racing from the category. Jeff Watts still a leader in the championship, but not having such a successful meet. After mechanical problems in the first race and slipping back in race 2 and 3 to finish without a place on the podium spots, his hold on the championship lead somewhat lessened. Stephen Raceline the standout in the last round, winning every race over the weekend. Just 2 points is all that Watts has to hang on to. Mr. Consistent Howard Crump a very close second. Raceline's excellent round 2 sees him closing the gap on 127 points. Chapman and Turner still definitely in striking distance and making up the top 5.
A team of WA HQ runners headed north last weekend for a run at Hidden Valley. Their championship, also 3 events old, sees Steve Raceline jumping to a good points lead on 183. David Turner, always a front runner, follows in second on 164, and the current number 1 plate holder Grant Howlett is in third with some work to do to defend his title. Colin Chapman not far behind on 155, and Rod Jansen makes up the top 5 on 134 points. Certainly living up to their reputation of giving the fans plenty of action, the HQs were out again in force for the 3-event Winter Classic round. It seems more and more evident that this class of racer are definitely serious about their competition, testament to the biff and barge again at this event. Unfortunately, an early race 3 tangle meant the cancellation of the last race of the day, the seriousness of the incident requiring the medical crew to attend. Earlier in the day, race 1 saw Stephen Raceline taking the win from Turner, Woodbridge and Chapman, with Alfieri making up the top 5. After a problem in race 1, Grant Howlett started race 2's reverse grid run from pole and made hay while the sun shined, securing a good early lead until Leanne Green spun off into the sand trap at Cat Corner, bringing out the safety car. Howlett managed a good break on the restart and held on to Flag's End to take first and some much needed points. Further back the action continued with Ralph Hobbs almost getting in the way of several drivers but escaping with a spin. Meanwhile, Raceline was making a big run through the pack and eventually finished a very fine second from the back of the grid, Turner taking third, Wayne Morfitt fourth and Alfieri fifth. So with just 2 of the races counting for points, Raceline took the lion's share from David Turner, Grant Howlett managing to salvage a reasonable amount of points to finish the day in third, with Alfieri rounding out the top 4.
The grids on both street cars and HQs are ever growing, testament to the popularity of these categories. On the weekend, both classes were well and truly at it, and as you'd expect, plenty of very close racing.
The HQ runners took advantage of the higher profile truck meeting to field a 20-plus car grid in the 3-race format over 2 days. Saturday's 6-lapper sorted the field for the first of Sunday's 2 races. On the 8-lapper in the morning, reverse grid and greasy conditions added to the always close racing of the category, with the main players taking their time in the conditions to round up the front runners. Dave Turner in the 14 machine was on the move to eventually take out race 2. Plenty of action in the conditions at Cat Corner, the midfield runners with heaps of slip and slide. Current points leader Steve Raceline another to make a good fist of the reverse race, climbing to third outright at the flag. Having to be a little cautious in the slightly damp conditions of Sunday's earlier race, it was all out from the drop of the flag in race 3, the first time to Ford Corner full on. Steve Raceline aboard the 34 machine leading marginally from Turner and Watts, the latter coming together in a big way, with Turner then getting crossed up and tangling with Rodney Jensen, who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. The pair eventually got back on track, having lost plenty of time and badly trailing the field. The action didn't stop there. On the very next lap, Raceline had grabbed a couple of car lengths to lead. However, the battle for second well and truly hotted up, with defending champ Howlett, the number 5 machine of Howard Crump, and Jeff Watts looking to grab that spot. The battle going 3 wide. Howlett looked like he'd done enough to take the spot going into Cat at the end of the main straight, but Watts and Crump had different ideas, Crump eventually winning out. The trio traded places with Howlett leading them on the next lap. Meanwhile, out front, Raceline continued to build a gap, the number 34 machine well sorted to the conditions. Further back in the pack, Rabina Dill was about to be swamped by Turner and Jensen, doing their best to peg back spots after the disaster earlier in the race. Turner's fight back short-lived, however, having to retire to the infield on the same lap. In the late stages of the race, Howlett had built up a gap over Watts to take second, with Crump a couple of car lengths further back. That said, the Howlett-Watts battle continued as the laps ran down with a great display of close racing by both drivers. At race end, Raceline took the points from Howlett, holding off Watts, and Crump taking a very well-deserved fourth. No rest for the weary HQ runners as the small but very competitive field lined up for the Clem Dwyer event. 3 8-lappers the competition distance, with the result for race 1 seeing the familiar yellow 34 machine out front of the checkered flag. David Turner took second to signal the state of play for the day, Rodney Jensen taking third with Alan Hill and Ross Dyer rounding out the top 5. In the second of the day's events, the reverse grid allowed space on the front row, with some runners preferring to start from the back. A good start for most of the grid except for a stalled car and one running to the infield. It wasn't long before the number 1 plate holder Grant Howlett had his machine on the boil and rounding up the pack. David Turner a couple of car lengths adrift, with race 1 winner Raceline and the number 74 machine of Woodbridge also on the move. The Howlett-Turner battle continued for the next few laps, Turner grabbing back real estate with some aggressive braking manoeuvres. As the gap lessened, he eventually overtook the number 1 car on the back of the circuit and kept his lead until the end of the race. Meanwhile, in the middle of the pack, Robina Dill was having a great event until this mishap. That said, top 10 finishes a great result for the weekend. Back at the front and nearing race end, Steve Raceline joined the Howlett-Turner battle, closing in on 3rd place and eventually taking that spot in the second race of the day. Again, another fine display of close racing from the Qs, Turner from Howlett and Raceline the final wash-up. The third and final for the day, Turner and Raceline with 1 win apiece making up the front row. Turner getting a great start and pulling out a couple of car lengths on the field. His run at the front though was short-lived as Raceline took the top spot at Kolb and ran down to 4 with the smallest of margins. Turner, not happy to lose that advantage early, kept a tight run all the way to Cat. As the field filed past with 3 laps down, Howlett was trying to stay in touch with the 2 leaders. Eventually though, the number 1 car parked with a blown engine. Mid-race distance and Turner tried to lunge under brakes going into Ford, but lost out badly, giving up a few car lengths. The mid-pack group of Woodbridge, Simpson and Alfieri keeping themselves entertained over the 8 laps to eventually finish 5th, 6th and 7th. Meanwhile, back at the pointy end, and it couldn't get any closer. The final lap brought out Turner desperate to take the number 1 spot. With the last corner his only chance, a big late break had both racers slide wide rally fashion, almost ending in tears. Again, testament to the driving skills, no paint swap. Raceline taking the race 3 from the hard-charging Turner, Jensen, Dwyer and Woodbridge making up the top 5. The HQs lined up for the second last round of their championship, with the main players keen to get the job done. 3 8-lappers to make up the day's racing, and as usual a big field kept the entertainment level high. The event's first race had championship leader Steve Raceline aboard the 34 machine take control early, winning from Turner in second with Crump taking a well-deserved third, Hill and Jansen 4th and 5th, with defending champ Howlett rounding out the top 6. Familiar reverse grid race 2 lived up to its normal level of close racing, the field getting away cleanly with John Guthrie's number 67 leading the pack through the S's. Colin Chapman quickly looking to take over, climbing up BP, the hungry pack 3 wide in the chase up the hill. At the end of lap 1, Simpson found himself out front, the run into Ford hectic as ever, Hobbs in the 43 car doing well to stay at the pointy end, but throwing it all away with a huge slide and fortunately a last-minute save. As the laps peeled off, Howlett was making good ground on Simpson, who had done well to maintain his lead. However, the number 1 plate holder signalling his intentions at VP, taking the outside line and closing in. By the time they reached Ford, Howlett led from Simpson, with Woodbridge now closing in on second spot. Just off the front group, a big pack of runners, including Turner, Crump, Jensen and Hill, battled hard for their respective positions. At race end, Howlett took the points from the hard-charging Raisin, Turner grabbing third, and you could throw a blanket over the pack from 4th to 8th. Another great display of close racing. Race 3 and the points leaders led the way, Raisin wasting no time grabbing a handy 3-car gap on the first lap as the field filed past the stripe with 7 left to run. By the next run around, the battle for second spot had got decidedly hotter, Turner, Hill, Crump and Howlett all looking for that position. Midway through the race, the familiar side of the yellow machine out front, holding a commanding lead, clear air front and rear. There were plenty of good battles up and down the field, Watt and Crump continuing their duel, Howlett getting a bird's eye view of the 3-car tussle ahead, Turner running it to the absolute maximum. Another great day's racing for the Qs, Stephen Raisin taking out the day's points, Turner second, Howlett, Crump and Hill also strong points getters.
Always exciting and close racing is what we've come to expect from the HQs, and this weekend's Price Attack HQ 100 should be no exception. And Howard Crump from Price Attack Racing, you'll be looking forward to this one.
Yeah, we are. This is our Bathurst. Things can go badly all year, and if you win this one, we're pumped. It's great.
So it is your Bathurst, and no points as far as the championship goes?
No, there's no points for this. It's a standalone event, so you can get out there, give it a red hot go, as Brocky would say, and really, get into the thing. We've got our co-drivers coming in, and because of the pit window, which is sort of lap 13 to 17, and the fact that each driver has a race and then the main race, you can't afford to have some muppet in the car. You've got to have a good driver. I've got Wayne Morfoot with me, who's a previous state champion. Yeah. And then you've got Grant Johnson driving with Grant Howlett, who's one of the top runners in Utes at a national level. So we've got some very good drivers in this field. So
there's a bit of strategy involved in getting the right co-driver, obviously.
There is, yeah. It's not just a one-lap dash for a driver and then get out of the car. You've got to make sure you've got a good team. You want someone approximately the same size, and so that you don't have a problem moving seats and belts. And they've got to be sympathetic to the car as well, so that you can get to the end of 30 laps. Because with the 2 6-lappers and the 30 lap and all the qualifying, that's a long way in an HQ. I mean, it's a 1971 four-door Kingswood taxi, so we've got to get out there.
And again, to explain it to us, the 6-lap races, I mean, it's run over Saturday and Sunday. Just explain to us the procedure and the fact of the roles of each of the drivers.
Okay, well, on the Saturday we have qualifying sessions for each driver. They'll get a 10-minute session to go out there and throw down their fastest lap. That determines their grid position. So each driver has their own grid position for their own 6-lap race. One of those races is on Saturday, the other driver races on Sunday. And then the points are combined from those 2 races, so that that's your starting position for the 30-lap final. And then in the 30-lap final, it's a rolling start. So you need a good grid position for that, because if you're at the back and people don't get going as fast as you can, it's a long way to come. So, yeah.
And as you say, we talk about the co-driver being important, pretty much for them having their own race as well, which they have to qualify and race in, and then it dictates starting position for the big one. A lot of equal driving, you might say. There's not really a lead or a second, both very important roles.
Yeah, correct. They are very, very important roles for us. And then, as I said, in the main race, in the Enduro, we've got to make sure that they're going to make sure they're in a good spot on the track, get you to a good position on the track for the pit stop window. And then, of course, if things like safety cars come out and we're allowed to pit under safety car, then that can tighten the field up as well. And you've got the strategy of, do I pit before the safety car or after the safety car, no matter when it comes out, and fit it within the pit window. So there's a lot of thinking to go on. That's tough.
Of course, you're talking about the age of the cars. You don't have any telemetry or any intercom or radio feeds to the car.
Our telemetry's always in at the end as they go down the front straight.
So really, from your point of view, who makes the calls in your team? You're obviously one of the lead drivers in your car.
Yeah, I'll probably make the call in my team, but then if there's something happening that I don't see and there's a possibility possibility of a pace car and we know the pit window's open, then the driver might call it himself and catch us by surprise. So that can happen.
How long does your driver change take?
From stop to start, about 17 seconds, and that's getting out and a belt change.
Yes.
But obviously there's a lot more involved because we've got to slow down to the speed limit in pit lane and then get out
So
again.
there's time costing there, but
There is.
pretty good driver change. Now, based on the last championship round, which was the JGC event, exciting racing there. So if anything, indications are this will be just as good.
Sure, that round was probably one of the most exciting we've had this year. The racing was terrific. There was a lot of things on the line for various guys, points for our club championship, points for the state championship, and the guys had to get out there and perform. And poor old Watsy went out there, stuck it on the front row, did everything right, got to the lead, got down to Colburn, then drove off the track, and Grant Howlett went off in sympathy, and we all sat and laughed as we went up the hill.
And that's really changed the results, didn't
It did. It changed the results around, but the racing all day was just wonderful, and door-to-door stuff, positions changing. Alan Hill came in and had a real good go for the first time this year. He put some time and effort in there and proved that he can do it with us, and the racing was wonderful. I mean, there's a shot on the website of 5 cars coming around the corner side by side, and Hilly's in the middle of it sideways, and none of us touched. And that's what Kiwis are about. So,
and that's what you obviously all enjoy about it.
Too right.
Now, I'm obviously intrigued by the strategy of it and things like that. It sounds like it's going to be a great weekend, Saturday and Sunday. How much to get into Barbagallo?
It's $10 a person or $20 for a carload. So if you've got a 7-seater, get out there with your $20 and get the whole family in. Yeah.
Sounds like great value for money, and as we come to expect, HQ's fantastic racing. Sometimes a bit of biff and barge, but always exciting.
Yeah, they can take it though. I mean, these are we try not to damage them because there's a lot of time and effort goes into these things, but sometimes there is a bit of rubbing that goes on, and rubbing's racing, as we know. But no, they are good fun, close racing, and these guys really turn it on for the crowd.
Very exciting. Well, I'm sure you're looking forward to it. Good luck with it, and look forward to catching up with you soon.
Thank you very much.
Welcome back. Well, Barbagallo Raceway played host to the Price Attack HQ 100 last weekend. 18 HQs, 100 kilometres, sure to be plenty of biff and barge. Howard Crump, thanks for joining us. Let's hear it.
Yeah, thank you. It was a really exciting race. We had 6 lead changes and 3 major accidents, and that was just in the first 5 laps.
Before the event, let's go back a little bit. Some interesting pairings for this weekend.
Yeah, there is. We've got some top drivers in there. The necessity to have good drivers because the 2 6-lap races is there, because that determines your position for the final. So you've got guys like Paul Fiore, Kerry Wade, Grant Johnson, who all race in saloon cars at national level. Of course, Kerry Wade and Grant Johnson have both raced at Bathurst with Mark Larkin Motorsport, so they're certainly not bunnies in the cars. We've got some very good driver pairings right through the field.
Obviously, you get a good chance for a couple of novices to step up too and get a bit of experience running with some of the older guys.
Yeah, sure. There's some guys there some of the younger guys, like Justin Chaffee, first year in HQs. He was out there with Anthony Fogliani, who's raced in the Australian Touring Car Championship and runs track skill here in Western Australia, so one of the best qualified people out there.
And I'm sure there's the odd pairing where there's been a bit of biffo between the pair in the past when they've raced each other.
Yeah, and that's continued into some of the partnerships on the track with guys running in other classes with a bit of biff and barge. That's continued on in this race, but also they've had to jump in the same car, put the differences to one side and get out there and bring the car home.
Bring the car home. Another new thing for this event, and the only time during the year that you start with a rolling start. The main event, 30 laps. We're into it from the first corner, I see.
We are, and it was just hectic racing. I mean, the first 4 or 5 laps, I stood on pit wall and watched the cars going around, and the first 4 cars changed position so many times, and on 2 occasions they came down the front straight 3 wide. And in different order each time they came around the track. It just kept changing lap after lap. It was brilliant to watch.
Obviously, being one of the drivers, is this something you're a little bit nervous? You're in an endurance event, you've got to do a driver change at some time during the event, and all of a sudden they're 3 wide, 2 laps into it.
Yeah, no, it makes you pretty toey. You're thinking, well, I've got to do the right thing when we get this driver change. When's it going to come up? Is there going to be a safety car? When's the best time to come in? And as luck would have it, at some point during the race, we did get a safety car, and the decision to come into the pits by some of the drivers right on the safety car lap as the the safety car came down the field, the lights went out, half the guys peeled into the pits, and mayhem broke out in the pit lane. Nathan Callaghan and Dave Turner decided to continue on, and that was one of the decisions that changed the race and took them on to win the event.
Just wind it back a bit for the viewers. Obviously, what happens is we have a window opportunity between laps 13
and 17. Yeah.
So in that time, you have to come in and change drivers, and as so happened, the safety car was out at the same time. So, is the decision made via the radio for this, Howard, or when do you decide to come in?
We're running 1971 HQs, and we run 1971 technology. You want them in, you scream over the fence, and we had to do that the lap before. So of course the decision had been made from pit wall to bring the guys in because we wanted to pit under safety car and make that advantage. Well, unfortunately, as the car came down the hill, the lights went out and they went racing as half the field were peeling in. So no, the technology is very basic. We can't have anything in the cars that transmits or receives data.
So the only radio is the AM one, I take it. Now, obviously, just getting back to that, the guys started to stay out, and Callaghan and Turner decided, look, let's stay out while the safety car comes in. Do you think the speed of the safety car entering the pits influences that decision?
Definitely. It's something that the guys, once the decision had been made to come in, it was too late to terminate, but certainly the guys going down the front straight after the safety car pulled off, the speed they carried down the straight is what took them on to that gap of 4 or 5 seconds that they needed to win the race.
So most of the changes went through without any major dramas. Quite a few cars in the pits for the first changeover, but from then on the action never stopped. There was no doubt about that.
Certainly up until the safety car, there was an incident where unfortunately my car was very badly damaged, and I managed to nurse it for 16 laps after I got it from the changeover. But Nathan Callaghan's car and Grant Howlett's car continued from the very first lap right up to the time that the safety car pulled in, dicing lap after lap, and the lead kept changing.
What things become an issue to a 1971 HQ in an endurance event like this?
Heat, fuel, tyres, shocks, brakes. You name it, it's a problem with an HQ. I mean, they're just not designed to do that sort of distance, and that's why the event is such a big one for the guys racing them.
What amazed me, I think, the most looking at it is, 28 laps in, there's still only a blanket between most of the field. Okay, the safety car plays an influence in that, but the racing is so close for 30 laps.
Yeah, it was, and we only had the one safety car, and that was right in the middle, and as you said, coming down to the end, you could still throw a blanket over the placings, and the battles were going on right through the field.
Somehow the moment that Johnson had, he seemed to dissect 4 cars and turn it back around the right way and keep going.
Yeah, he got turned around by a car that was 2 laps down, and how that occurs I don't know, but he managed to avoid the carnage and spun all on his own between 4 of the cars. No one touched, they all got going again, and then recovered from there to pick up 3rd place in the event, so well done.
And eventually Turner Callaghan, great decision to stay out when the safety car was in, brought it home for the win. Placings just after that were pretty close.
Yeah, it was. Jeff Watts and Clint Harvey came in second, and the Callaghan car basically didn't step and put a foot wrong through the entire race, other than when Dave Turner came out of the pits, he nearly drove off on the first corner from the vision I've seen, but yeah, very, very close.
Howie, unfortunately for you, not the end you wanted, but another meeting coming up in a few weeks' time.
There is. We tried very, very hard with our car. It got some real damage to it, and I nursed it right to the end and eventually blew the tyre. But I know the girls from Price Attack and Joodle up in Warwick are really pleased with the effort that we put on, and it was just a brilliant event for everyone.
So as expected, the Price Attack HQ 100, huge event. Next event, Night Masters on the 11th of November, is that correct?
11th of November, a day-night race meeting under lights on the short circuit, and it'll be on again. All the cars that have got damaged last time will be fixed up for this one, and they'll be at it hard and fast for every lap of the race.
Howard, thanks for joining us. Hopefully you can come back after that one with some better news.
We'll see you then.
Now HQs, we move into that. Early on in the day, spectacular race for Rabina Dill. She won the first scratch race ever by a woman at the club.
Yeah, the reverse grid race, and she certainly wasn't up the front of the field. She was back a few grid positions at the start. She made good on the first lap, got up in front, and though she was pressured by some top drivers including Dave Turner, Grant Howlett, and Alan Hill, she managed to hold on to take out the win, and we looked at the record books and she's the first lady to take out an outright win.
Now Grant Howlett, just talking about that, Grant was certainly the class of the field.
Yeah, he certainly was consistent on the night, took out the first event, and he stayed within the top 4 all night to take out the top HQ. There was 4 races, 4 different winners. Grant Howlett taking out the first scratch race, Robina Dill taking out the reverse grid, Jeff Watts and Dave Turner all taking a win apiece. Very competitive HQ racing.
Now quite a few of the HQ guys looking to move on perhaps next year.
Yeah, certainly Grant Howlett, Jeff Watts will be moving into saloon cars, and Dave Turner will be probably concentrating on street cars with the Mazda RX-7.
Now going back just a step obviously to the HQs, Howard Crump had a bit of a problem early on in the last race. A bit of a recurring perhaps gear selection problem.
Yeah, he was on the front row. He's only been on the front row twice this year, and both times he's had gear selection problems, and he sort of feels that the gremlin's against him.
Now Grant Howlett got out to a 5-second lead in the last race, but a tyre problem put an end to his race.
Yeah, certainly did, and he lost out. Dave Turner was on the hunt. Dave Turner's last night, and he certainly wanted to go out with a win. He hunted down Grant Howlett. Grant Howlett had the problems obviously and slipped back, and Dave Turner took the race, but it was great racing for the HQs.
Now the new HQ champ Steve Raceline, he's had a fantastic year. He's been super fast, but I think everything went wrong that possibly could that weekend.
I think he ran out of budget actually. He ran on the cheap. He ran on the cheap side of things. Not really. He didn't have the best of nights. He was still up there, but he certainly didn't perform like he had been for the rest of the year.